Dear colleagues, dear supporters of the Think Balkans, Mr. Mares and Mr. Mura, dear participants of our hybrid event, it's my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the European movement in Serbia as one of the partners in the project Cooperation Instrument for the Western Balkan Think Tanks Cooperation, Think Balkans, supported by the Visegrad Fund. Our debate today is devoted to the report from Think Visegrad to Think Balkans, Lessons Learned and Recommendations, written by our colleagues from the Visegrad Group. We researchers in the Visegrad Group made study visits around the region, and this is the outcome of their visits. This is the first public event of the network Think Balkans, supported by the network of think tanks from Visegrad, Think Balkans. There are several other short and long analyses and policy papers produced in cooperation of these two networks together. But I have this information to be shared by the main coordinator of the project, Mr. Zoran Ecev from Skopje, Institute of Societas Civilis. I would just like to share with you a few thoughts on the context in which this project has been developed. And this context is very well reflected in the opinion of the European Economic and Social Committee on communication from the Commission to the European Parliament, the Council, the European Economic and Social Committee, and the Committee of the Region, enhancing the accession process, a credible EU perspective for the Western Balkans, and which was launched on in November 2020, the new methodology, so-called for the enlargement methodology. And this opinion of the European Economic and Social Committee was launched on 24th of March this year. And what are the messages? Their comment was that the potential of the civil society was not underlined enough in this new methodology. That future enlargement process should rely more on the civil society, that civil society plays a very important role in democratic reforms in the Western Balkans, that the clusters approach, which is strongly supported, should use the expertise of the civil society, especially in the clusters fundamentals and the green agenda and sustainable connectivity. Then that civil society should be one of the four pillars of democracy, and their role should be appropriately assessed. And when the decision on the fulfillment of political criteria is done, then the civil society organization, those who possess high expertise in different areas, they in a way can justify in the best way the merit of the different reports being produced in Western Balkan countries, that they are very important monitoring actors for the process of reforms in different areas. Then they also stress that there is a shrinking space for civil society organizations, and that this is also the serious problem in the Western Balkans, and that the European Union should even more support the civil society in the Western Balkans, and that through civil society, the Western Balkans can take part in the conference on the future of Europe, because there are open channels for involvement of the civil society. So I just try to give some ideas for maybe even for our debate. And I would like to give floor to Mr. Zoran Nechev, our main coordinator, and he will let us learn what was done in the framework of the Think Balkans, what is going to happen next week. So Zoran, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jelica. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Everything okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, first, apologies that I cannot be present physically in Belgrade for this event. But anyways, you know, it's still okay to be online, especially under these circumstances. I'm really excited that finally we have started organizing events with physical presence, something that was, you know, previously unimaginable. And the whole thing is that this will work well, especially in our advocacy efforts to push for this agenda further and in the future. We have started this project during the COVID crisis situation, but I think that we are right on track, and then we are slowly getting all the ministries of foreign affairs on board. For those which are not familiar with the project, just a couple of information. This is Visegrad Fund funded project. We have detected a very successful story in the Visegrad countries, and then that is Think Visegrad, and we have thought about how we can actually copy paste this mechanism in the Western Balkans, because we don't have such a mechanism in this part of Europe, and this is how we came up with the idea to connect with Think Visegrad and try to establish Think Balkans. So this is a completely regional initiative. Now it's led by us, but in the future, it's all about the network itself, how it works. So from the side of the ministries of foreign affairs, our main interlocutor from the other side are the ministries of foreign affairs of the countries of the Western Balkans. And we cooperate directly with them based on their needs assessment or information about relevant topics. They decide collectively what they will ask the civil societies that are participating in the Think Balkans mechanism to draft papers, proposals, ideas, whatever. And these afterwards are being presented in front of the MFAs. So these are kind of documents that are submitted by the think tank community to the ministries of foreign affairs. And that is how we preserve this kind of a regional element from the MFAs. On the side of the think tanks, how we preserve the regional element is actually that each and every paper should have been written with participation of at least one researcher from each of the 6 Western Balkan countries. That is how we are going to have all the necessary, points of view being present in the papers. So we devote much attention to this. This is still a project in a nascent phase. But we have our partners in the Visegrad Fund and in the Western Balkan Fund, and we tend to continue this kind of cooperation and even expand it in the future. Yeah, this project is this paper that we are presenting today is based on the study visits of the Visegrad 4 researchers in each of the countries in the region. And this is the product. We are going to have the same in the countries of, so the Western Balkan partners will go to the Visegrad countries to look for, you know, experiences, challenges, etc. And specifically the study visit that we are going to do in Slovakia, we are going to bring the Ministries of Foreign Affairs in Bratislava that will accompany the researchers. So besides this event, which is the first physical event, next week we are going to organize on the 5th of October, just one day before the EU Western Balkan Summit. We are going to organize with our Slovenian partner, which is the Center for European Perspective from Ljubljana. We are going to organize an event in which all the participating parties in this project will contribute. So this is in a nutshell what we are going to do until the end of the project. We are in constant communication with the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of the Western Balkan countries because they're our main interlocutors, and we think by the end of the project and starting from next year, we will have an already established mechanism which will start producing its first briefs and papers, which will directly feed the Ministries of Foreign Affairs. I would not go in further details. If anyone is interested in additional information, of course we can provide them. I would like also to thank Ms. Kovac for being present and supporting the project, as well as all the other guest speaker. So the Hungarian ambassador in Serbia, and then both the executive directors of the Visegrad Fund and the Western Balkan Fund. So thank you very much, and Jelica, back to you.
Thank you, Zoran. Civil society organizations and European movement in Serbia have always cooperated very well, cooperated strongly, even taking part in producing some declarations and resolutions about European integration of Serbia and at the time Serbia and Montenegro, and on many other issues. And I believe that several analyses that we produce together and that will be launched in the next 2-3 days, the one today, on the conference of the future of Europe and the necessity to include the Western Balkans, as well as the other one on the new methodology, could be interesting for the Committee for European Integration in Serbian Parliament. And we would be happy to present the results. Mrs. Kovac, it's a great honor to have you today. Mrs. Kovac is Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Serbia and Head of the Committee for European Integration. She is very open to cooperation with the civil society, and thank you for that. And we hope that you will be in our network in the forthcoming period. So please, Mrs. Kovac, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, dear participants, I believe that the shadow is not the best. It's my pleasure and honor to be with you. Actually, I'm in Strasbourg because the sitting of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe is on from Monday until Thursday evening. That's the reason why I'm not able to be there in Belgrade. But thanks again for the opportunity to meet with you, at least in a hybrid manner. I think it's important really to discuss the different ways of cooperation between the civil society and us politicians. So not only the ministries, but also parliaments and different bodies of parliaments as an important part of the process. I was happy when I could meet personally some of you I believe it was at the beginning of June in Belgrade, and that we had a fruitful discussion. First of all, I was thinking, you know, what can someone say in, let's say, 5 up to 7 minutes, speaking about the project, about the lessons learned as you formed, and recommendation, the Visegrad Fund, and so on. And then I decided to be really, you know, frank and honest, as every time. It is important, first of all, so when we speak politically, that we have, as we know, that we have a maximum support of V4 countries, so-called Visegrad countries, when we speak about the enlargement and the way of our Western Balkan countries, Western Balkans 6, and of course that I mostly speak about Serbia. And that I was in Budapest last week, and we heard, I was there instead of our Speaker of the Parliament, because the Hungarian presidency organized you know, gathering of speakers of the Southeast European countries, and it was interesting, of course, Visegrad Group, and it was interesting to hear the messages. So we all have a support, and we would like to continue, but we are aware of the fact that nothing is happening. That's the reason, you know, I'm really happy that the previous speaker mentioned the summit, the Western Balkans Summit, which will be organized, as we all know, on 6th October in Slovenia. And before that, I'm happy to hear that you have your event, because we as politicians, the European People's Party, my party belonged to, is also organizing the day before, you know, on 5th October, the so-called EPP summit on Western Balkans, because we believe that someone should be the front runner, or someone who will push the process, because despite of the fact, I'm really happy Jelica mentioned the new methodology. So we know that we have a new methodology, and Serbia, of course, accepted it as soon as it was possible. But still, when we look back in the last, if we speak only about the last few months, we are aware of the fact that unfortunately the results are not seen. And we would really like to be, as you said, the part of the conference on future of Europe, because when we speak about the future of Europe, it is, it cannot be without the Western Balkans. And the Southeast European countries should take part in this conference. And I believe that the most important thing is really the enlargement. You won't believe me now, here in the Council of Europe, you know, with much more member states, 47 member states, even here, the situation of Western Balkans, the enlargement, and actually the way, on the way to the European Union, and what can Council of Europe do. So this topic is a current affair debate, which will be tomorrow, and the plan is to have this topic on the agenda. But still, I believe it's not enough to, you know, only to speak about this. We have to find a way how to convince others who are not so convinced yet, that we are really trying to do our best. All in all, I really do not want to be too long. I will really try to be here with you almost until the end. So I hope that we will have time for discussion. So if there are some questions or issues, I'm here. And as you said, I'm a big supporter of this project, and I'm looking forward to continue the cooperation with me personally, but also with the European Integration Committee of the Serbian National Assembly. And of course, the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia as a whole institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kovac. It is good to hear your words, and we believe that we are ready to keep you informed about further development of the project and to share with you all papers that we are going to produce or we already produced. And we would be happy to have you present during our debates. We can, I suppose, also send the link for the hybrid event in Slovenia. So if there will be some, for you, some empty space during your meetings, probably this event in Slovenia will be even more attractive because the papers will be in a way presented, the papers that have been done already. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Peter Mareš, our main founder and supporting institution. So, Mr. Mareš, would you take the floor? We are, oh, he's not. Then we follow. Well, maybe Mr. Mareš will join us later. This morning, he confirmed the participation, and we follow the agenda. I would like now to give floor to Marta Špala, Senior Fellow from the Center for Eastern Studies from Warsaw. She is very knowledgeable about our region, and she wrote many papers, many studies about our region, and she is part of this consortia of Western Balkan and Visegrad Fund think tanks. So, Marta, please take the floor.
Jelica, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As Jelica said, my name is Marta Špala. I'm working for research institution in Poland, Center for Eastern Studies, and we are the part of the Think Visegrad network, which is a network in which the researchers from the Visegrad countries cooperate. My institution, but also my other organization who participate in the Think Visegrad, we have long tradition of cooperation with the think tanks here in the region. We implemented a lot of projects together, usually founded by International Visegrad Fund, who is supporting the cooperation between the expert communities from both regions, but also is supporting the enlargement and reform process through the financing of the project here in the Western Balkans. There were like really vast amount of project covering different areas. Our main focus was usually EU integration and exchanging of the know-how between our countries, Visegrad Group and the Western Balkans. We prepared together advocacy strategy for the Western Balkans, how to promote the Western Balkans as the part of Europe among the EU members and societies both in the EU and in the Western Balkans. The strategy also were based on our experience, Visegrad experience. And since we have this kind of really long cooperation, we thought that it will be really good to establish permanent mechanism for cooperation of the experts here in the region. As Zoran mentioned, we thought about our mechanism, which we have in the Visegrad 4. So I will briefly present you the main features of our Think Visegrad network. So the Think Visegrad network is the platform of 8 research organizations from Visegrad 4. It was launched in 2012 by this research institution to enhance our cooperation between us, but also our cooperation with administration. Okay. So.
I do apologize. We had technical problems. Marta, please continue. Okay. I hope it won't be again.
So our main interest, or what we prepare our research on, is the key issues, the issues of key importance for the Visegrad Group. And we provide the recommendation for the governments of the V4 countries, annual presidencies of the group, and also the International Visegrad Fund. The network also adjusts its priorities to adjusted activities to the priorities of the Visegrad 4. So it also includes some EU institution, EU policies, and of course, EU integration of the Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership. What is also really important that this network is serving as a core network. So to prepare recommendation and our to our activities, we invite the other think tanks, research center, and universities and expert from Visegrad 4. So the network has inclusive character. So it's not the closed network, but we rather serve as the intermediator between the institution in our countries and the research and academic community in V4. So the work of our network is managed by one of core members of the network. It's Slovak Foreign Policy Association from Bratislava, which is the technical coordinator of the Think Visegrad. Also they are coordinating we also have the Think Visegrad coordinators who meet on regular basis. This coordinators are based in our ministries, and in the close meetings, close events, they are agreeing or deciding on what topic we should, as the network, prepare a research on. We also have the representation in Brussels. So upon the suggestion of European Institute for European Policy, the Czech core members of the network, the Think Visegrad platform agreed to establish representation office in Brussels. And it is operated by Europeum. It prepares some expertise who are devoted exclusively to the EU policy, but also it promotes the Visegrad point of view in the European Union. We as a network, we are preparing the 4 extensive and long-term analysis each year. They are focusing on the most important priorities and the most important issues. And we also work on 4 short-term expertise who are focusing on the current and the urgent topic every year. The analyses are for the internal use only, so they are not published. They are only for Polish, Czech, Hungarian, and Slovak administration. Although if the governments, if the MFAs decided otherwise, we are publishing, they are publicly available if the subject is the matter of the like common interest, and would like to also present this kind of view for the wider public. Also, in our Think Visegrad network, we are conducting civil servant mobility program, and this is a program which is focusing on exchange of the best practice of the V4 with the Eastern Partnership countries and the Western Balkans. Every year from 2 countries from Eastern Partnership and from the Western Balkans, 5 civil servants from each country come to our countries and are offered the training in the areas which are of the interest of the countries who are sending these civil servants. The subject of trainings are also really wide. We are focusing on managing migration, energy policy, agriculture. So it depends on the needs of the our partner from Eastern Partnership and the Western Balkans. As I said, our network is fully funded by International Visegrad Fund, and we also cooperate with the departments of analysis and policy planning in our national MFAs. And why we think that this cooperation is profitable and it is something we would like to share and present also to the Western Balkans. First of all, it serves for the capacity building and developing the expertise, both in our MFAs and ours as researchers, because we are talking about the expertise. We are exchanging the information between ourselves and also with our MFAs, and it helps us to provide better expertise for the needs of our administration. What is also really important is its strength, the common understanding and knowledge about each other priorities, because of course Visegrad cooperation has long tradition. We have really extensive contacts on the various level, but at the same time, when we work on the common paper, we are starting to understand our national interest and our national interest better. Sometimes it's easier for the expert to express some concerns of the different partners in the Visegrad group. So it's really helpful to strengthen the cooperation and make them better and more profitable for all partners in V4. What is also important is this, like as I say, local ownership of the regional cooperation. So it is something which we are preparing for ourselves, for our region, for our ministry. So the point of view which are reflected in the expertise are the basis for creating this local perspective on the various issue, and it also help us to develop common position, for example, in European Union or on some issues which are important for whole region. Also through the Brussels office, we can promote this common position in the European framework, and also we can support the reform process in the Western Balkans through civil servant mobility program. So we thought, since the regional cooperation is something which is really important now for whole region of the Western Balkans, it's also important to include expert community. with cooperation with MFA to this regional cooperation here in the region of the Western Balkans. As it was said, we conducted 4 study visits in all 6 Western Balkan countries, and we, based on this experience, we would like to share some our reflection how this network can be implemented here in this region.
Thank you, Marta. It's my pleasure now to give floor to Jana Yusova, Research Fellow at the European Institute for European Policy in Prague. Jana.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be with you in Belgrade, at least virtually, and I apologize for my absence there. As actually Zoran mentioned already at the beginning, I believe he talked about the study visits, and it was several times mentioned later on. So these study visits were organized at this first stage of the project for the V4 researchers, and in different groups of researchers from our region, we visited all the capitals of the Western Balkans in basically 3 journeys. So first, a group of researchers traveled to Belgrade and Pristina, then to Sarajevo and Podgorica, and in the end to Skopje and Tirana. And during these study visits, we had several meetings with not only people from the state administration or state institutions who are somehow involved in regional cooperation or for whom the expertise provided through the Think Balkans platform could be relevant, but also with civil society actors, think tank representatives, and basically the aim of these visits and these meetings was twofold. It was not only from us coming from Visegrad to kind of explain to the regional actors what the Think Visegrad cooperation is about, how exactly it works, what are the mechanisms in place, and so on, but also for us to actually gain a better insight into the realities on the ground in the Western Balkans. And to hear from all the actors, all the experts that we met with about their experience, how they perceive this idea, how the cooperation between think tank community and the state institutions, mostly the government, but also parliaments and parliamentary committees looked like before, and so on. So what we realized, I would say, was that the context is a bit different. As usual, there is a lot of temptation to compare the Visegrad group with the Western Balkans 6. And while it may serve as an important source of inspiration and maybe provide some good examples and some positive aspirations for the Western Balkan countries in terms of regional cooperation, the context in which the Think Visegrad platform was created was different than what the reality is currently in the Western Balkan countries. So what is important to note is that the Think Visegrad network was established in our region only actually basically 20 years, so 2 decades after the Visegrad group as such was already in place. So there was intensive political cooperation and deep regional relations and good channels of communication between the countries themselves already before. So the Think Visegrad project was basically just an additional dimension to the already established regional cooperation on the political level. And as such, it already built upon, well, on one hand, the good relations or progress relations between the countries themselves, but also on already established communication and cooperation between the think tanks in each of the V4 countries and the governments. So there already was some level of cooperation and some level of trust, which is the key word, what we realized. Between the think tanks or the civil society in general and the governments. This unfortunately seems from our experience in the region and during these study visits, not necessarily the case. in the Western Balkan countries. Of course, it's very difficult to talk about the region as a whole because the situation was different in each individual country. But in general, I would say from what we've seen in comparison with the state of affairs in Visegrad group and from our experience, everyday experience, there is a significant level of mistrust between the think tanks and the governments and the ministries, which of course it's not a good starting point for developing some deeper cooperation, which in Think Balkans project is based largely and will depend largely on information sharing from both sides and information exchange. So this is something that, and I believe we will get to it in the recommendations part, this will be very essential and crucial thing to address. Also, what we realized was that it might be a bit challenging to identify the best point of contact in the ministries or the government institutions for us to work with during, or for you to work with for the Western Balkan think tanks to actually connect through with the state's sphere, basically. Because in Visegrad countries, our point of contact in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is usually the planning and analytical department. So we know that this is the department that actually is supposed to provide recommendations and gather the expertise and analysis in the field of fields of interest for the governments. So this is actually very important to find the point of contact in the administration who not only is the, let's say, gateway for us to actually access the decision makers in the government, but also for us to actually gather some feedback, because this will be also a very important aspect when this cooperation develops further, the two-way communication between the government as the recipient of the analysis and the think tanks as the producers. So this is something that also needs to be addressed. We already tried to discuss it during the visits and during the initial stage of the project. So it might result in a different point of contact in different departments, for example, in each of the countries. But it's important just to really try to target in order to make it as beneficial as possible for all sides involved. And also another thing that we realized in the Balkans, and which is different from Visegrad countries, is the role, I would say, of bilateral neighborly disputes and the negative effect that it has on any regional initiatives, and unfortunately also on the sustainability of the Think Balkans platform. And that is because in Visegrad, we also, throughout the history, had serious bilateral issues, but it never actually hindered the regional cooperation initiatives as such. This, unfortunately, is not guaranteed in the Western Balkan region. So there will be necessary strong political will for cooperation and also for enhancing and supporting initiatives like these. And from what we understood, I mean, usually the meetings, I would say, were rather in a positive note. The actors from the region, from all the countries, were at least to some extent interested and willing to get involved in this platform and in this mechanism of cooperation. They were quite curious about it and asking some very concrete questions, which is, of course, a positive thing. So it seems that there is some deepening realization of the benefits that this kind of cooperation within the think tanks and the governments actually can bring to the governments themselves. It's true, and it has been acknowledged already before in this event, that the state capacities are sometimes low, especially the analytical capacities in the ministries of foreign affairs. They are sometimes not sufficient to deal with all the challenges that come along during the European integration process, and although the countries in the region have to deal with many other things like the migration and climate change, and they share basically the same challenges. So it's only beneficial for the governments themselves to use and utilize the expertise that exists outside of the ministries, outside of the state institutions in the think tanks. And hopefully this project in the next stages will be able to facilitate this cooperation and this exchange between the two spheres.
Thank you very much, Jana. I would like now to give floor to Ferenc Nemet, Research Fellow from the Institute for Foreign Affairs and Trade in Budapest. Ferenc, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jalica, for the introduction. And thank you, Marta and Jana, for introducing the Think Visegrad Consortium as well as our experience during the study visit. So like Jana mentioned a couple of minutes ago, after our study visits over the course of the last month, we took our experience that we gathered in the field into consideration. And we came up with the recommendations for, not just for the Think Balkans project, not just for the actors involved in the Think Balkans project, but also for the governments and MFAs that might be interested in working under the framework of the Think Balkans in the future. And for those who might want to get to know more information about our recommendations, those are also included in our short study paper that we just recently published. During this conference, and thus it is my pleasure to present our recommendations. And this also allows me to be the bad cop and the good cop at the same time with our recommendations. First of all, what we agreed on is that the region needs a platform, needs initiative like Think Balkans. And luckily, we are not alone with this idea. We are not alone with this stance, because during our study visits to all the 6 capitals, all the people from various backgrounds, from the civil society, from governmental organizations, from research institutions, they showed interest and support for this project, but obviously they had some reservations. And our main question was, how can we bridge these reservations? How can we address their concerns or slight criticism? And we are trying to, throughout our recommendations, give some solutions or give some options to bridge those issues that arose during the study visits. So when it comes to our recommendations, I think it is best to say that we can categorize those points that we have into 2 main categories. The first one is the need to build trust and confidence, and the second is to strengthen local ownership. As for the first point, building trust and confidence, it is very important to, like Jana mentioned, it is visible that there's a lack of trust among research institutions and governmental bodies or agencies, so or state or non-state actors in the region. And obviously, we cannot build trust overnight. It's a longer process. It takes time. It takes energy from both sides. So what we can recommend is for the Think Balkans partners to take a more proactive stance, to take a more proactive approach towards their partners and towards their respective MFAs. For example, by presenting their work on a regular basis, keeping in contact with their MFAs on a regular basis, and to showcase them that they have the expertise that they need, that the MFAs and governmental agencies and bodies can use for their own advantage. This is from the side what the Think Balkan partners can do, but obviously this is a two-way street. From the side of the MFAs, giving regular feedback to the Think Balkans partners are crucial, because this is the way how we can shape or reshape the formula itself. This is how we know if what we did throughout, for example, our papers that we published is good, is sufficient, or how we should somehow change the way we work, the way we communicate with it. So when it comes to building trust and confidence, it is important to be proactive, to take this proactive stance. And also what we can suggest is to make Think Balkans open to other think tanks or research institutions from the region. First of all, it should be noted that this is only a pilot phase. So obviously we needed to limit the number of participants, the number of participating organizations from the region. But obviously during, let's say, the second phase of this project, it would be beneficial to include more local partners because that might also enhance the trust that the government, that the respective government has for other partners coming from the same country. And also it would be also beneficial for the project and for the government as well, because more experts, more organization can translate into a larger pool of expertise and a larger pool of experts that can be at the service of the government agencies as well as it can have a positive impact on cooperation among research institutions in the region. So that was the first part which we can recommend, is to build trust and confidence in the future. Obviously, and I think it needs to be stressed, this is not something that we can done by the end of this week. This is a work in progress, as it should be. The second biggest recommendation that we could give is to strengthen local ownership. Firstly, and let's talk a bit about the finances and the financial aspect of this project. A full institutional and financial support is needed, as well as a long-term commitment that this project will be financed or will be financially assisted by the MFAs of the Western Balkans, for example, through the Western Balkans Fund. Just to make a quick parallel, the Think Visegrad formula is financed from the IVF, the International Visegrad Fund. And our idea is that later on, the Western Balkans Fund would allocate the financial means to support the Think Balkans formula. And by doing that, we can strengthen the local, the regional ownership actually in the project. Another method to achieve this regional ownership goal is to establish a management and coordination mechanism for the Think Balkans. Once again, we also have this kind of mechanism within under the Think Visegrad consortium. So we really think that it might also be beneficial to have a better communication platform and a better structure as well as ownership to this project in the Western Balkans, in the context of the Western Balkans. So that would have been my second point, the need for strengthening local ownership. That would include ownership from a financial perspective and ownership from a management and coordination side. Above all, you you can also find other recommendations and this kind of recommendations in details in our small booklet that is also available now on our partners website. And I think I will finish here and pass back the floor to Jelica.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our colleagues from Visegrad Group for their efforts, willingness, good energy that they shared with us. And it was a very good people-to-people contact, which we developed. We have already a very good history of cooperation with our colleagues in Visegrad Group. We know each other for years. And we also had excellent cooperation with the International Visegrad Fund. And thank you for the confidence in the civil society. I can speak about Serbia, but also about the region. Sometimes we were the leading partners, but sometimes only a partner in different regional projects. And we always had colleagues from Visegrad Group as well. So it's a very good tradition, and I believe that this project will prove to be also one of the big successes. At least we are all interested to have it as a big success, which is very useful for our countries in the Western Balkans. And now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Petar Mareš, Executive Director of the International Visegrad Fund, located in Bratislava, and to welcome him as a new director. And we hope to have a lot of contacts, and we hope that we are not going to disappoint him with this project, so that he will together with us, welcome the results of the project when it will be finished. Mr. Mareš, the floor is yours.
And please accept my apologies for not being with you in beautiful city of Belgrade. Please believe me that if it was upon me, I would certainly join you. I would like to congratulate you for the results of the project so far. I mean, the first part of the visit of Think Visegrad experts in Balkans. From what we heard from them, it seems that this support from Visegrad, Think Visegrad for Think Balkans, is bringing results. I like very much the realistic approach from Visegrad, Think Visegrad experts. It's good to share our experience. It's good to offer advice and assistance, but we must understand the enormous differences between the situation in the Visegrad countries and the situation in Balkans nowadays and in the history. We understand that you're facing much more complicated environment for your efforts, political, economical, social, and we understand that the difficulties you have to overcome are much more complex than we have ever been facing in our countries. I would fully support these key proposals raised by Think Visegrad experts, and mainly the regional ownership and trust building as a goals for Think Balkans. Trust building among the experts is a first step, and trust building is between the experts and the decision-making sphere is the second one. I'm sure that the first step will be much more easy than the second one. As we had before, the contacts between think tanks and expert communities in Balkans and their counterparts in Visegrad goes farther or deeper to history than the idea of Think Balkans. And I believe that creating this network will not take such a long time as the other step. And I like very much the remark about not creating a closed society, keeping Think Balkans open for new initiatives, for new ideas and newcomers too. Regional ownership too is extremely important. If it should be a way of communication between expert society and decision-making sphere, it necessarily has to be regional voice. And unfortunately, part of it is, of course, financing. International Visegrad Fund is ready to continue the support for Think Balkans. But at the same time, we would appreciate highly if the way we are providing support for Think Visegrad could be somehow followed in the case of Think Balkans too. It's not easy for ministries, for political decision-making sphere to accept the voice of expert community. Because if the expert community, our think tanks, would be telling us only what we want to hear from them, it wouldn't make any sense. It means the decision-making sphere has to be prepared that they will be hearing many things, many results of analysis, which would not fit completely into their vision of the surrounding world. But this is exactly what we need experts for. And this is why I believe an important example to follow for the Think Balkan is the fact that in Think Visegrad are both those think tanks connected directly or more or less connected to the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and independent think tanks. It's the necessary machine moving the Think Visegrad forward. I participated last week in a meeting of Think Visegrad in Czechia, and it was a good example of situation when during the whole session there was an elephant in the room. You may have noticed that it was a time, and unfortunately it still is a time, of serious political dispute between Czech Republic and Poland. And when I saw our experts to deal with this issue, to discuss it, and to continue their discussion about other issues, not depending on this serious political, not conflict, but dispute, I believe it was a perfect example that we, to a certain degree, succeeded in having Think Visegrad on a level which is needed for us as a fund and first of all for the decision-making level in our countries. So I wish Think Balkans all the success. You will be welcomed here in Bratislava. The fund is looking forward to your visit, and I hope that our cooperation will continue in the future and successfully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mares, and we are sure that we are going to fulfill your expectations. And now it's my pleasure to give floor to Mr. Đerđ Mura, Executive Director of the Western Balkans Fund in Tirana, which was also built according to the model of International Visegrad Fund and supported by International Visegrad Fund in each respect. So thank you for that again to the International Visegrad Fund. And please, Mr. Mura, and I would like to thank Mr. Mura also for his interest and readiness to support Think Balkans. So please take the floor.
Thank you, Jelica. Thank you very much, and also thank to Zoran and also to Peter for being together in this important regional event that brings together two our regions, meaning B4 and WB6. And thank you also for the opportunity to address this event. During the Polish presidency of the Berlin process, more than 2 years ago in Poznan, an important think tank forum format was initiated. Following the forum, the think tank Balkan mechanism has started to become operational, aiming a unified and qualitative approach with the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of WB6 contracting parties. On December 11, 2020, we have assisted at the kickoff event of a cooperation instrument for the WB6 think tank Think Balkans, with the participation of all project partners and representatives from MFAs of WB6 and B4 countries. We were all together on that launching of the project. From that time, a lot of activities have taken place, and I want to thank the project partners, and especially the IDSCS for keeping us informed, including this important event today as the first public promotion of the results with the support of B4 researchers, aiming a better cooperation with relevant foreign policy making institutions in the Western Balkan region. Dear Jelica, dear Zoran, and dear partner project partners, congratulations to all of you for your dedication and for becoming front runners in connecting the regional dots of intelligentsia. Our gratitude to our trusted partners from V4 Group and IVF for their political and technical support for the creation of this important instrument of cooperation in our region. Our thanks to the researchers from V4 region, some of them being with us today, and with some of them, and most with them, we met in Tirana some 2 weeks ago during the 4th anniversary of our fund, for their dedication and partnership spirit shown while accompanying the inception phase of Think Balkans. And I am sure that their support and sharing of expertise will continue in the future as well. Jana mentioned during her research conclusions that yes, there is still mistrust between CSOs, think tanks, and public institutions in our region. Also, it was mentioned that the reality in our region is not quite the same with the reality in the B4 region. That's for sure, and that's true. But let me say that during this period, I have followed carefully the progress of the project, and I feel encouraged by the support and partnership relations of project with MFAs in the region, as they are the most relevant beneficiaries of our projects. In this respect, allow me to highlight the need for keeping as close as possible connections with the focal points in the respective MFAs, and the identification of those focal points, as it was mentioned by Jana, need to be strengthened in the future as well. In this respect, I would suggest, dear Zoran and dear Jelica, that to have another joint meeting at the end of the meeting of the project, with the participation of all MFAs from the region in order to take stock of the results and to decide about the way forward. The follow-up of our 11th of October meeting, when we started the project with this event, will be a very good momentum to attract the attention and all the support from ministries of foreign affairs as the most important stakeholders and beneficiaries from the Think Balkan mechanism. Before today's event, I was doing some research, and it looks that contrary to the public perception, Western Balkans 6 area is one of the richest in the world in terms of think tanks per capita. If numbers were important, we would be champions of thought, but numbers do not matter. The truth is that we still have a lot to accomplish to reach the power of mind, and most importantly, to strengthen the links of that power of mind at the regional level. Together with many of you, I have followed the most important stages of Think Balkans development process. And yes, Ferenc, I am a strong believer that Western Balkan Fund may become the natural partner of this initiative, playing an important role in developing think tanks and their cooperation in the region. Not only because Western Balkan Fund has a great deal of expertise in supporting regional projects, including research or academic projects, but mainly because of our status established and fully owned by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of WB6. This position makes us the perfect partner for becoming an important hub in facilitating new connections between MFAs and civil society organizations, including think tanks. Western Balkan Fund has been a strong supporter of the Think Balkan mechanism since its establishment. Now, as foreseen also in the last MOU with International Visegrad Fund and with the sustenance of our Council of Senior Officials, we are considering a more concrete and sustainable support. For your information, with my request, Western Balkan Fund has already included in the agenda of discussion with the Council of Senior Officials on 8th of October, meaning 10 days from now, the topic of a regional-based approach with think tank institutions in the future. In close cooperation with Skopje Chairmanship in Office, we are considering also the possibility to invite one of the project representatives to be part of the meeting. We have shared and we are in contact with project lead, with the leading partner of the project, and we hope that their presence during the meeting will be and will facilitate better, let's say, decision of our Ministries of Foreign Affairs during our Committee of Senior Officials. I also look forward for your next meeting on 5th in Ljubljana, and that will be another opportunity to take stock of the activities and, what is most important, to have a clear view about the way forward. Let me conclude by stressing that I am confident on the progress and the success, and we look forward to continue our cooperation in the future as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you for your encouragement. Let us hope the meeting of the board of the Western Balkan Fund will be successful. It is my pleasure to give floor now to Mr. Attila Pinter, Ambassador of Hungary to Serbia, representing on our meeting Hungarian presidency of the Visegrad Group. So we would like to hear your opinion.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I am certain that the presentations delivered here today make an important contribution to the dialogue between our researchers. And once again, let me thank for all the participants for their highly professional work. As you know, the cooperation between the think tanks of the two regions, the Western Balkans and Visegrad 4, has shown that we have a lot to learn from each other, and joint efforts lead to better understanding. The Visegrad 4 renders its support to the Western Balkans, not just in the scientific circles, but also in the political sphere. As Hungarian ambassador to Serbia, I have witnessed the growing recognition of Visegrad Group by the Serbian public during the past years. It is not just empty words. I honestly believe that there is a genuine commitment from Serbian decision makers and public institutions to look for partnership with our respective countries. The Visegrad 4 has established itself as a group of like-minded countries who understand the situation Serbia is facing now, shows empathy and support when needed, and thinks within the same concept as Serbia. Our cultural similarities, geographical proximity, economic, social, and cultural cooperation has never been more active. I hear high-level decision makers praising the Visegrad 4 for their success in handling COVID-19 crisis, recovering the economy, and being a stable and determined bloc within the EU. As a Hungarian citizen, I understand that change is difficult. Our history is full of difficult processes and hard decisions. The Visegrad 4 came to being when we were transforming from a dictatorship into a democracy and a functional market economy. It was formed in the right moment of history when cooperation was the way forward. It was formed, I cannot stress the importance of regional cooperation enough, especially when it comes to the European integration of the Western Balkans. At the same time, I already see similar promising results like the Open Balkan Initiative led by the Serbian government. Such measures can lead to a better future for all inhabitants of this region. Just like to Visegrad 4, the Western Balkans can achieve more together. Dear colleagues, dear friends, allow me once again to thank you for the important work carried out here, and I wish you much success in your future endeavors, and hope that our joint efforts can lead to a mutual understanding of difficult issues in foreign policy. Thank you so much.
Very much, Ambassador Pinter. And now I would like to invite Mr. Nechev, who wanted to take the floor. Zoran?
So we can see each other. Yeah, I just wanted to, based on the discussion, thank you, Ambassador, and thank you both directors for your pleasant words. Definitely we are on the right track, and the process of transferring the ownership to the region is already underway, and this is what is going to be one of the results of this inception phase, although we can expect even greater ownership in the second phase, or let's say the phase that we are going to start next year. However, I would not decline the support that we should be provided also by the Visegrad Fund, because what we have seen also through these visits of Visegrad researchers to the Western Balkan countries, the political support of this process, besides the other support, the financial support, the political support of this process is necessary. Without the support of Visegrad countries, it will be let's say a little bit more difficult to establish this kind of mechanism. Trust, I completely agree. Trust is something that needs to be built during the process. Of course, there are hesitations from both sides. In the case of the Western Balkan countries, let's say the think tanks that are involved now in the process are not related to the MFAs whatsoever. And this is why I took note of the what IVF director has mentioned, that we need also to leave the door open for future participants. And this is something that we have even started stressing out during the meetings with the MFAs throughout the region, that this is only, at least for the time being, it's just a project. We're establishing a network that should start fully functioning in the future. And we have also mentioned that similar to the Think Visegrad mechanism, besides this core group of think tanks which are already in the mechanism, we are going to at least try next year to leave the door open. Of course, it's based on financing and everything else, the criteria that we have to figure out, to leave the door open for one more organization in each of the Western Balkan countries. So to follow again the Think Visegrad, mechanism, in which we have 2 organizations per country, which are in the core of the mechanism. And then afterwards, in each of the countries that we have visited in the region, we had meetings with various think tank, civil society organization, and we have noted, or we have explained to them that we are going to need their own support, because our think tanks, the capacities that we own are limited. We can cover certain policy areas, but we cannot cover them all. And this is why we need also other local think tanks in each of the respective countries to assist us in producing this analysis for the MFAs. Further explanation, it looks like that is needed, but I think that they have understand the concept that we can also serve as a secretariat, and depending on the topic requested by the MFAs, reached with a consensus by them, that we are going to explore also other venues, other civil society or think tank organization that can write in the name of Think Balkans the papers or the analysis. Yeah, I think that was what I wanted to reflect upon. We are in close contact with all the MFAs. Obviously, still we need to understand which are the focal points. We have started now developing, and this is something that we have started doing in the previous period, that we are sending constant email kind of informational leaflets of what the mechanism is actually doing, because what we have realized, also different to the Visegrad countries, but you're sending the email to one person, there is another person which is responsible for the mechanism itself, and there is a third person that shows up on the meeting that doesn't know anything about it. So, but I guess in time we will go over it. It's not the first time that we have been cooperating with state institutions. Once more and more people know about it in the MFAs, I think that there will be quite a contributor to the whole network. And this is why I said, so the regional ownership, we already started doing it. Open network, we will start during next phase, once we determine also with our Visegrad partners what are the criteria that this organization need to fulfill in order to be accepted in the mechanism. We can also use the Ljubljana, and this is like an open invitation also to the IVF director, if it's possible. The Ljubljana event is happening on the 5th. If there is an opportunity also to participate there, I think it's a really nice venue also to talk with our Slovenian colleagues of how they can also provide support for the future of this mechanism, because obviously the Slovenians are somewhere in the middle, so they're not in the Western Balkans, they're not in the Visegrad, but they're quite interested in the region itself, and they have shown this already numerous times. So and this event is going to be related also to the Slovenian presidency with the council. So I think that is something that we can also explore in the future. I will stop there. I would not go further. I would just end up with capacities are limited, definitely, but we can say that there is a lot of knowledge in these organizations. For example, we have talked with our Slovenian colleagues when it comes to the new methodology and for accession negotiation, and we were wondering if there is some other materials besides our already published short paper and the ones which is almost finished, which recommendations we're going to discuss in Slovenia. Are there any other kind of explanation how the process should look like under the new methodology? And there are none, neither by the institutions, neither by the member states, or any kind of other relevant institution that really can explain to the Western Balkan countries how we are going to proceed further. Because what we have seen, it will be different for Serbia and Montenegro compared to Albania and North Macedonia, although we are going to implement the very same methodology. So there is a lot of ground to cover, and I think that we are on a good track, and we are going to work even more with even more strength in the future to have this established and nurture it afterwards. Thank you, Jelica.
Thank you, Zoran. We have to close the meeting, but before that, I would like to say that our papers, high quality papers, are going to make impact. I already promoted the paper. I read the paper, but the layout was not finished. It is supposed to be finished today. The paper on the conference on the future of Europe, very interesting, very good paper. And I promoted the paper at the meeting of political committee of the International European Movement. And they were very interested to disseminate the study through their network, which is huge. So we have opportunity to promote our products much wider than our region, because we address problems which are not only closed in our region, but are also our communication with the European Union, regional developments, instruments produced by the European Union. So there are many ways to be present at the European scene, not only in the Western Balkans and in the Visegrad group. So we hope to become relevant much wider than our two regions.
Yeah, and just to add, and this paper, especially on the Conference on the Future of Europe, is based on the letter which is signed by the V4 Ministries of Foreign Affairs and the Austrian MFA, to include the Western Balkan in the conference. So obviously we build upon on what we already have as a support from the Visegrad country, and then expand it even further. Thank you, Jelica. I will stop there.
I have to stop you, Zoran, because our time is limited, and we are going to have opportunities to speak further on immediately next week. So thank you very much. Thank you to all participants. And our today's meeting is over. I do apologize for a technical problem that we had. And I'm sure we are going to have more public events in the coming days. So this is the first public presentation of the results of the Think Balkans. And thank you for starting the process.